For more on the new Pope, let's speak with Dr. Ruben Mendoza, professor with the Department of Theology at Ateneo de Manila University. Professor Mendoza, good to see you again. So one more time, he who enters the conclave as a Pope leaves as a cardinal. And we include names like Parolin, we include names like Telge. So maybe you're not surprised by the selection of Leo, but I mean, it's still significant. Can you tell us how and why?
Well, it's significant since the primary reason would be he's an American. Nobody expected actually that an American would become Pope. Now, of course, that's in a sense not conventional thinking in the sense that there can be no superpower Pope, given that the United States is already a superpower. But things have changed geopolitically recently. But even then, nobody really expected that he would be Pope. And but actually, that's true also for all the other elections of the previous popes. Nobody expected them to become Pope. We really don't know who the Pope is. That will be dependent on the discussions during the conclave and who the cardinal electors think would best serve the needs of the church.
And certainly a stunning appointment. So why do you think Cardinal Prevost was chosen by the College of Cardinals? And what does the relatively quick election tell you about the current priorities within the church's leadership?
More than 80, I think 80% of the cardinal electors were chosen by Pope Francis. So I suspect that those cardinal electors wanted the programs, the agenda of Pope Francis to continue, particularly his reforms in the church's practice and also the way the church administers the church's administration and governance. With regard to the speed of the election, it's practically the same as the time when Pope Francis actually was elected. So there has been not that much change. And I suppose due to the fact that more likely than not, it would be easier right now to know one another. We have, of course, the internet that would have contributed to the bishops or the cardinals rather to knowing each other better and being able to choose in an informed way.
Professor Mendoza, I want to ask you a little bit about the name he chose, Leo, which is the name of a figure that was close to St. Francis of Assisi, the very name that the late Pope chose. So how big of a clue does this provide in terms of his philosophy, in terms of his outlook and the direction in which he will take the Catholic Church?
The Pope Leo XIV has to explain, actually, he himself has to explain why he chose a name. But if he had in mind when he chose the name Leo, the last Leo XIII, then that would be significant in terms of his agenda for the entire church. As you stated earlier, Leo XIII was the Pope who issued the first social encyclical in the Catholic Church, Rerum Novarum, in 1891. And in that encyclical, he argued for the rights and duties of both labor and capital. But a particular focus at that time, at the time of the Industrial Revolution, was the rights of workers. For instance, the right to work, the right to just wage, and the right to form unions. So assuming that he had Leo XIII in mind, so it would seem that the Catholic social tradition would be the emphasis of Pope Leo XIV. Significant, I think, in what he said yesterday when he spoke in the balcony was that he first greeted everybody with peace. And then he even referred to the Urbi et Orbi message of the late Pope Francis, in which Pope Francis called on an end to all the ongoing conflicts, wars in the different parts of the world. For instance, in Palestine, in Gaza, in Congo, in Ukraine, among many other places. So peace actually is one of the themes of the Catholic social tradition. So perhaps we can expect from him to focus on that particular area and to further develop the Catholic social teaching in that area.
We know that Pope Francis opened the door to conversations on many long-standing and often contentious issues like the role of women, LGBTQ plus inclusion, and global South representations, and so on. How do you expect the new Pope to deal with them?
I think the good thing, or one positive thing about about the new Pope is that he called on the church. He said, well, last night, that the church needs to be a synodal church. So that's something I think very positive, a continuation really of the program of Pope Francis. And when we speak of synodality, this would mean talking to all peoples, listening to all peoples, engaging in dialogue, encountering them. And that would include the encounter, the dialogue, the listening to those peoples that have been traditionally marginalized in the Catholic Church, and that they would include the members of those who belong to the LGBTQIA+ community. So we can expect, I think, that the Catholic Church would continue on reaching out to those marginalized groups, to those who are in the margins, making sure that they will feel that they are part of the church. And that's all part of what Pope Francis has started with regard to the synodality of the church. So,
Professor, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, Professor. I'm sorry to interrupt. I mean, we know that Leo is American, and we also know that cardinals have long been resistant to choosing an American to be Pope. You mentioned some of the reasons. America is already so big, so much influence. And you would think, even more so now, they would be hesitant to choose an American with Donald Trump in charge. So what's changed? I mean, is it because of the work he's done in Peru, or is it because of the new US administration?
I think it's primarily because of the work that he has done in Peru, and also because of his close collaboration with Pope Francis. Now, with regard to Peru, I read somewhere that he has actually the least American of the American cardinals during the conclave, primarily because of his experience missionary work in Peru. And he brings with him that particular perspective coming from the global South. And actually, there are references to him not only as an American, but South American, similar to his predecessor. And I suppose that's also, in a way, that can be helpful also that he's American in terms of the Vatican's dialogue with Pope Francis, with President Donald Trump. So hopefully that will be a good starting point when the Vatican engages the United States of America.
Professor Mendoza, a pleasure. Thank you very much for talking to us. Once again, Dr. Ruben Mendoza is a professor at the Department of Theology at Ateneo de Manila Uni.